Hey guys, it's Ali back with another one, and today it's all about strategy, how to improve your game, things to look out for, and if you're a beginner, I'll be giving you a few hints and tips to help you through the initial stages of the game. Now naturally, as you play the game, you'll only improve. The more battles you're in, the more exposure you'll have to different types of players, and the better strategies you'll have. Believe me, through each game you'll have to change your strategy 2 or 3 times, and you need to be well prepared just in case things don't go your way. So now let's talk about your battle decks. Now your battle decks are what can give you the advantage or disadvantage through the game. They can help you win the game, or they can be detrimental and make you lose the game. So to have a well balanced battle deck is key in any sort of battle. So what kind of cards do you select? Well, there isn't an easy answer. It all depends on the cards that are available to you. Like I said earlier, the best type of battle deck are those that are the most adaptive and the most balanced. Those that don't just focus on plan A, but have a plan B and a plan C. There's nothing worse than having one type of plan and having an opponent that has the ability to counter that exact plan, and therefore every time you try to start off an attack, your opponent will nullify it easily and you'll find yourself just getting frustrated. So a couple things to think about whilst making your battle deck. Let's start talking about low powered cards. These cards are like your goblin cards and your skeleton cards, and use a lot less elixir than your high powered cards, so you can churn out a lot of them at any one time. These cards, however, are very vulnerable to projectiles like the arrows or the fireball, and are easily taken out. In saying that, if however you can time it correctly or your opponent doesn't have any projectiles, you can build a large army and cause difficulty to your opponent. So now you have your power cards. These are the giant, the balloon, the witch, and etc. These cards tend to use up a lot more elixir, so you can only put out a couple at any one time. However, these cards are quite powerful and can do a lot of damage to your opponent. You can sometimes use these cards to build an attack. You would do this generally by allowing your opponent to attack you first, and then using your cards to defend and then counter. By doing this, your troops won't actually move beyond the bridge until they have destroyed the opponent, by which time you should have gained a few more elixir, so you could potentially add a few more units to the attack. Another potential way of using these cards is by deploying your first card behind your tower. This way, by the time your troop or your troops get to the bridge, you could potentially add another 2 more cards to the attack, and therefore building a small army to start the initial attack against your opponent. Thirdly, you have your building cards. Now you have 2 types. You have your offensive building cards and your defensive building cards. Your offensive building cards are like the barracks or the goblin hut, which churn out warriors and add to the attack, whereas your defensive card only comes active when your opponent comes near. However, in both cases, they act as a distraction to those cards that target buildings, like the giant, hog rider and balloon. So lastly, you have your projectiles and your spells. Now these spells and projectiles are great since no one can defend against them, and they can give you the advantage right when you need it. For example, the freeze spell will freeze your opponents, leaving your troops free to destroy them, whereas a projectile can destroy a whole bunch of your opponent's army all at one time, since it has high splash damage. These attacks are also great right at the last moment when your opponent's tower only has a little life left and their time is short, so you can use it as a sucker punch to take out the last tower and hopefully win the game, leaving you free to sit back, relax and smile. So now let's talk about the actual battle itself. Within the battle, there's a couple things that you'll have to look out for and a couple things that you need to do yourself. The first thing to do is to try to figure out what sort of cards your opponent has in their battle deck. This way you'd be able to better prepare your attacks and your defenses. Now the second thing to do within any battle, and the most important thing, is the timing. What cards do you put out and when? And also, how much elixir does your opponent potentially have remaining? So now, do you attack, defend, or counter? Well, that all depends on the situation. If your opponent puts out a heavy push with, for example, a giant and a few other cards, then of course you'll need to defend. But can you turn your defense into a counter and therefore maximize your damage? Well, it depends on the cards that you have. If, for example, your opponent sends out the witch and the musketeer, or goblins, or skeletons, just wait for them to go beyond the bridge and place down that Valkyrie in the middle of all of them, and hopefully the Valkyrie can take them all out and you can start an attack. There are simply too many variables for me to talk about within each battle. The best strategies to use will only come to you as your experience grows within the game. So what if you're a beginner? What if you're just new to the game? Well, what I would recommend is for you to use the giant. Now you can use the giant to create an attack or to simply cause a distraction to your opponent while you try to defend. In general, if I'm initiating the attack, I would wait for my elixir bar to fill before I place my giant behind one of my towers. I do this so that by the time the giant reaches the bridge, I could place down 2 or 3 more troops behind the giant who use the giant as a shield. In using this strategy, if your opponent decides to defend, the giant will act as a shield and your troops will start attacking the opposing troops and hopefully take them out, leaving your giant free to attack the tower. On the flip side, when I'm defending, I try to use the distraction method the most. I'll wait for my opponents to go past the bridge before I place one of my troops behind them, so that hopefully the opponent's troops turn around and attack my troop while my tower shoots them down from behind. So no matter what strategies you use, good luck to you, and hopefully this has been some sort of help. So if you like what you've seen, push that thumbs up, press that subscribe button if you want to see more, and until the next time, peace.